Hello, everyone. This is the Reverie Roundtable, which we have on Mondays, 8 p.m. Eastern. If you're watching us on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe. And consider becoming YouTube members, hitting that join button so you know when I'm going live. And consider hitting that join button to keep us up and running. So we're going to introduce everyone here. We'll start with our friend Scott Fabian Liberty. Scott of Fabian Liberty, excuse me. All right. Thank you for coming back, right? Despite everything. Thank you for being here. I feel like every time that a panel ends, Scott's gonna send me a DM swearing me off. Right? It's like, this time I've had enough of your bullshit.
No. I mean, like, people need to understand something. It's in many ways it's political theater. Everyone wants to believe that, like, and I because I always search for the truth, but like you get amped up, you get yelling at people, you attack their politics, right? But I think it's really important that streamers and other people recognize I'm not attacking the person. I'm just attacking your stupid fucking ideas, of which you have a lot of, PrimeCayes. I'm not saying you're stupid for having stupid ideas. I'm hoping that you're not stupid, so you'll come around to my based ideas, right? And so, like, I love you, PrimeCayes, as a person, even though I hate your stupid ideas. That's all that is. I got no hate for you, brother.
All right, no, the exact same thing back. I appreciate you coming through and having different ideas and be able to defend your ideas vociferously, right? Makes it better entertainment for my audience when I systematically demolish you in front of them. Makes me feel like a big man. So thank you, Scott. But I do appreciate you. All right. Next, we'll go below with Double Shine. Hey, Double Shine. He was just on with us on Saturday. He popped by open panel, and like he reminded me that I wanted him on my panel before. He had come on like months ago, and like I was impressed, and I wanted to talk to him some more. I'm like, yeah, come on, close panel, and I literally completely forgot. But you showed up, then you pressed me again. I'm like, oh, I want this guy on. So I went to our DMs, like, oh crap, I actually already asked him previously. So I wanted to make sure I got you this time. So I'm very happy that you said yes. Thank you for being here, Double Shine.
Yeah, it means a lot to be on. I'm really excited because, like, this is, as you mentioned, there are a lot of heavy hitters on this panel. So yeah, really excited to get a chance to, like, talk things out with them and see what everyone's thoughts are on today's discussion.
Okay, thank you. Next we have Sprouticus. Our good friend Sprouticus is back with us. Sprouticus up here to put up a fight, right? And to lose, right? Being a jobber for me, I do appreciate that. Sprouticus, thanks for coming through, buddy.
I love being the heel. Double Shine was very generous, saying that we're gonna talk things out. I highly doubt this panel is gonna end in talking, but you keep believing. I'm happy to be here. I'm always down for a good debate. So yeah, I'm ready to get into it. Ready to talk with all of these established debaters.
Hey, thank you. Next, we'll go to our Dark Lord and Savior. DOB's back here with us again, as he always has a place here. All right, always. Like usually, like he's my first invite to all these things. I don't think you guys would be surprised about that. So Doobie, thank you for saying yes. Doobie has like other things to do in his life. I can guarantee you that. But he says yes to us so often. We definitely appreciate that. Thank you, Doobie.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. And one of those other things I have to do in my life is I run a Discord server, the politics server. It's discord.gg/politics. And tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern, we'll be having Roger Stone on for an AMA. There are some like requirements for submitting a question, but that's all on the server. So if you guys are interested in that, hop on and you'll be able to talk to them tomorrow.
Exclamation point!
So, yeah, should be a good time.
If you want to check that out in my chat, and you got that link, thank you, and thank you, Remy LeBeau, for 100 bits, much appreciated. Okay, last and the best, which is why I saved her. All right, we have
really, dog.
Yeah. Yeah, actually.
So this is why we need YouTube panels so I can call you certain slurs on YouTube.
Okay.
Look. Oh my god. Erudite. Literally the best of us here, right? Erudite, I'm so happy to have her around, right? Not for her ideas. No, those are pretty terrible. But for everything else she provides us, right? She has a winning personality, a shining smile, right? And she'll use that, right, to lull you into false sense of security, right? And to take you away from your progressive values. Don't let her do it. Don't let her do it. Thank you, Erudite, for being around.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Prime.
So understated. I said all that stuff about you. You didn't even respond. All right, okay.
I'll hit you up in DMs after.
You got me again. All right. All right. So, topic 1. In England, a controversial golf tournament has begun. The LIV or Live, I'm not actually sure which way to say it, but the LIV Golf Series is being sponsored by Saudi Arabia. The tournament has been prohibited by the PGA, and the players taking part have been suspended. This is all supposedly in reaction to Saudi Arabia's record of human rights abuses. But should the players in that tournament be concerned about that? Should we expect athletes to be burdened with the geopolitical machinations of their sponsors? Or should they just be allowed to get paychecks where they can? So yeah, this is a larger issue. It's called, like in the article, they call it sports washing, in which countries try to clean up their image by, like, sponsoring things that you might like. Oftentimes sports, right? So they're doing it here with PGA, but they've been doing it for a bunch of other stuff. They've been keeping track of gaming news. They've been breaking into esports. It's been like a huge conversation. So they're buying up a lot of stuff, right? And wanting to let you know that it's brought to your good friends, the Saudi royal family. So yeah, but should anyone who is affected by this actually care? So let's talk it out. Scott.
Hold on, am I getting picked up? There we go. There we go. No, I wasn't muted. It was like not picking up for a second. Sorry. So I think this is a really interesting thing that we should talk about, because as what it really, I think, shows is how much we do not value freedom of association in our culture, and because of our reliance on governments. We have this weird knee-jerk reaction that we don't like something, so someone should step in for us and fix the fact that we don't like something. When the real answer is you shouldn't watch it and you shouldn't support it as an individual. Like, Saudi Arabia is a shit fucking country with horrible human rights abuses. America is a shit fucking country with horrible human rights abuses, just not as bad as Saudi Arabia, right? I mean, like, I think we can agree that America is a horrible fucking country in terms of how it treats people in, the same theater that Saudi Arabia is in, at the very least. And so this idea that, like, because they're uniquely bad, we need to, like, do something because it's, it's wrong that they're able to clean up their image. There's a lot of ways that this could be beneficial to Saudi Arabia's human rights, modernizing in some ways. But at the same time, there's a lot of ways where this can be used to kind of change the perspective without actually changing anything in the country, right? The sports washing. I welcome a longer conversation about this, but ultimately, I think the right answer is that instead of, hoping some corporation or some government that's fucked you 6 ways from Sunday, but now all of a sudden magically you want them to step in and protect you in this instance, is a stupid knee-jerk reaction. And what you should be doing instead is saying, I'm not going to give my support, and I'm going to tell other people not to support this thing because fuck Saudi Arabia. And it should be as simple as that.
Thank you. Erudite.
I mean, this one's really dicey. The problem is that when we're talking about sports washing and its effects, there's nothing super easily measurable that you can point to of, like, is it actually causing the harm that people are suggesting that it is, right? People are suggesting that the harm being done is essentially you're normalizing and allowing these countries to obfuscate their human rights violations in, like, the glitz and glam of sports. However, is it actually doing that? right? This is the question we always have to say. Before we get mad about sports washing, we have to answer the question of, is it having the effect that we believe it is? Because if it turns out that actually it's bringing more awareness to the human rights violations of these countries, then that would be a good thing. But if it is actually doing this thing, then that would obviously be a bad thing. I'm trying to look a little bit. I really can't find data. And so I'm going to be like the boring person who says, like, honestly, I'm not going to weigh in really strongly on either side other than talking about like some of the pros and cons for it until there's data available. And if somebody in the panel has it, I would love to look through it.
Okay. We can maybe also generalize things so that, it might be easier for you to comment, but we'll give it a try. Double Shine?
Yeah, so I think that when looking at this idea of sports washing and should we hold people accountable to engage in athletic or other kinds of entertainment activities with countries that are doing things that we would probably deem reprehensible in our society, I think it's a really good thing to try to, I don't know, sorry, did my camera just, okay, cool. To kind of think about the individual versus the organization. So on an organization level, I totally think that they should be trying to do, take action to avoid interacting with these things. I know that the IOC a couple months ago has moved to try to ban athletes from representing Russia and Belarus because of obviously the invasion of Ukraine. And I think that's a good thing that we should be supporting. However, on the individual level, I think it's kind of insane to ask an athlete who may not even know that much about the situation going on in these countries. They probably spent less time thinking about this stuff than we on the panel, or even the people watching this panel have spent actually like looking into these things that the countries are doing. And for them to martyr themselves and basically ask them to to give up their entire life career that they've, probably been spending a decade, if not 2 decades, maybe even more, building up to these international competitions, for them to throw that away, I think is an incredible ask. That seems a little unfair.
Thank you. Spartacus.
At this point, I think the PGA I think the PGA is able to do what the PGA is able to do. PGA does not want to be associated in any way, shape, or form with the LIV, and they don't want the golfers that got famous from the PGA to bring focus on the LIV. There's been historic precedents for this in which most, if not all, the other panelists on this panel would agree with me. Germany got banned from the Olympics in 1920, 1924, and 1948 following the World Wars. And Russia and Belarus are banned from international sports committees, and the International Olympic Committee has recommended that no one organize sporting events with Russia or Belarus or inside of Russia or Belarus. And so I think at a certain point there is a time to do something. But like I said, it's up to the PGA and what the PGA wants their image to be.
I think you meant Belarus.
Belarus, yeah, sorry, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you so much. And DB.
Never make fun of somebody for mispronouncing a word because it means they learned it by reading.
Yeah. Fair enough. DB, please.
I don't know. This just seems like really flaccid virtue signaling. I don't understand why we should like punish athletes who happen to live in a country for the shit the politicians in the country are doing. Like, it seems really silly. I don't think there's no chance that these human rights abuses, quote unquote, are going to stop happening because they're not letting these people play golf. So in effect, again, they're punishing the athletes. It's really flaccid virtue signaling, accomplishing nothing, and it's just really silly. It's stupid.
Okay, all right. So I think I'm actually interested in how things have fallen out here. Multiple things. One, Double Shine. You were saying that we shouldn't ask them to give anything up. They're not like giving up their careers. In fact, it's the opposite, right? So the PGA, which I forget what that stands for.
I was gonna say that, but
yeah,
the moderator wants to give his opinion. All right, I'll shut the fuck up.
The PGA runs most of the tournaments, right? Like the major tournaments all run through the PGA. The PGA has banned the people who are being part of the LIV. So like there's like 17 players who've gone there and they've been suspended, right? So it's the other way around. They've actually if anything, they're sacrificing the career to be a part of this. However, the reason they're doing it because the money is real. I think if I'm
$250 million prize.
$250 million prize. I think
makes you a quarter of a billionaire if you win this. If you win this one tournament.
But I think, if I remember, like you get $2 million just for showing up. For participation, you get $2 million.
Instant millionaire.
This is how they do things with Saudi Arabia, and so that's how they're able to get all these people. Like they get these big names. It's easy. And then we'll get to Spawn, and then Spawn to Doobie, right? Flaccid virtue signaling. I hate that. I hate that. What you're saying is that like these people who I'm not a guy who follows celebrities. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what they have to say. Usually, but other people do. They like look up to these people. So to say that these it's okay for me to be a part of this thing that's being run by human rights abusers. I think this is a terrible message. I'm going to get into it later on with you, Doobie. But Double Shine?
Yeah, so real quick, when I talk about athletes giving up their career, I think the best example I can point to was
Colin Kaepernick.
Well, the one that I wanted to take was the 2022 Winter Olympics. A lot of U.S. athletes were asked, even I think by the Biden administration, to not attend because of controversies happening in China. And I think that would be synonymous to giving up your career to not be able to attend an Olympics. Now, in the case of this, for the Live Golf tournament in particular, I think we can still say that asking someone to not attend a high-profile tournament that is going to give them, I mean, if you say $2 million just for attendance,
$200.
Huge. Wait.
The Saudi Arabia guys gained $200 million, but go ahead.
Okay, no, it's $2 million for showing up. It's $250 cash prize.
So yeah, and I think asking them to give up that kind of an opportunity when I don't know how wealthy these people are without it. Again, it's a really big ask, and I mean, unless their caddies are literally slave run, then I don't see how they're directly responsible for the atrocities committed.
So wait, do you think Germany should have been able to participate in the Olympics following World War I and World War II?
No, because I think that the organizations have a different responsibility, and I think that for them to ban athletes,
but it's just the best athletes from that country. That's all it is. The country's not getting any money from sending athletes to the Olympics.
But they're getting a lot of recognition, right? And I think that I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm pretty sure that the athletes aren't necessarily banned. They just can't represent the country that they're attending. That's why Russia has been banned before because of doping incidents, right? But all the athletes still showed up. They just came as a separate independent.
Yeah, the Russian it's
ROC.
ROC. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I think the real thing here is, something Sproutic has touched on, right? These are two entities in competition with one another, right? The idea that we have this, what I want to take issue with is this idea that there's this need to do something. I don't really see a problem here because, I mean, supposedly there's this problem that Saudi Arabia is going to use sports, or Formula One, for example, right? That they're going to use these sporting events to garner attention, and that's somehow going to cover up the atrocities because sports fans are going to somehow not look into Saudi. I don't see the connection. I've yet to hear someone make a good argument as to how bringing attention to your country and giving out prizes and money and letting people see things somehow puts up some wall psychologically, or where they're unable to then look into the country or learn about the country. I would almost think if it might even have the exact opposite effect, where a lot of people don't even think about Saudi Arabia, but they're real big golf fans. And so they end up reading reports and journalism that about their favorite golfer that also ends up mentioning human rights abuses. I would almost think that the idea that they're doing a sporting event might bring more attention to the genocide that's occurring in Yemen. That that a lot of people don't know about, but they might actually learn from this because of what they read about their favorite golfers. I just don't understand how two companies competition with each other, and the PGA decides that if you work for them, go fuck yourself, whether that's financially motivated, image motivated, or they legitimately believe Saudi Arabia is evil or some shit. I fail to see the problem here. I'm trying to understand it better.
Well, the LIV is definitely getting a hell of a lot more attention than they were prior to this. But I think it's up to the PGA. If the PGA wants to be I don't think the PGA wants to be associated with Saudi Arabia in any way, shape, or form, and that includes their golfers. And so they don't want people who are playing underneath the PGA to be associated with Saudi Arabia in any way, shape, or form. It's keeping an image. It's about the money. That's what this is about. It's about the money. It's keeping the image. That's why the PGA made this move.
I mean, regardless if it's financial or some kind of political boycott, I still think that like there's absolutely this problem of sports watching that we do need to be critical about. I know that I know that you said that like it might bring more people in. I don't think the average person who's like following these sports things is like particularly interested in like the political climate of the countries.
Wait, what?
All that they see is
when did I say it might bring people more?
When
did I say it might bring more people?
Sorry, I was addressing Scott's point there. Right?
Oh, okay.
But like,
Yeah, but I'm not making that claim though.
Well, you were kind of saying you were saying that these kind of high-profile tournaments might bring people in and start to like see the genocide. But I think what's actually happening is they're going to see, wow, Saudi Arabia has these awesome esports events, these awesome F1 tournaments. I don't know what they're called. These golf series with all the most high prolific people ever. And in a lot of ways, once you've placed these high-profile luxury events, it masks all the bad stuff happening.
I mean, like what I'm. Oh, sorry. I'll just respond real quick and then let not so erudite. Sorry, but what I'm saying is I'm not saying that that's going to happen. That's not what I said. Right. What I'm saying is I'm not hearing a good argument psychologically, right? That states that the sports washing has a significant effect. Right. What I'm saying is yes, I will agree that some percent of the population knows nothing about Saudi Arabia and then sees the golfing and then walks away with a more positive view of Saudi Arabia. But I'm also would posit that at least some percentage of people, like the types of people that follow this shit, right? The types of people that actually watch like NFL drafts, the type of people that like read articles about their sports because they're really into that shit, might know nothing about the politics. And because of good journalism, if it still exists, will learn things that they never would have looked into. But what I'm saying is like, I'm trying to understand how, where the argument is that this has a significant effect. I've yet to see any data on that. What I'm hearing is an assumption about that because we don't like Saudi Arabia because Saudi Arabia is a horrible fucking country.
So I could be wrong, but my understanding is that the PGA and the LIV are essentially opposing companies of golf,
yes.
Right? They're not like, so
in competition.
The comparison to Olympics is difficult because the Olympics has a different international significance culturally than two companies, right? And so
we can compare, if you would rather, we can compare the USTA with Europe's version of that. I forget what Europe's version is called, but we can compare the USTA with that.
Sure. I guess when I read the article specifically, it's kind of condemning LIV based on like what Saudi Arabia is, which I think most of us would agree is like not the greatest country, right? There's a lot of serious problems with Saudi Arabia. The issue is that at a business level, it feels like the PGA is kind of coping. And they're kind of post hoc justifying that they don't want competition in the area. I could be wrong. Is there any other major company that can put up the stakes that the LIV can to compete with the PGA? Because my understanding is the PGA has a bit of a dominance in this sport field, whatever the word is. You can tell I do lots of sportsing.
No, I don't think so. And like this is the biggest pot ever. There's 250 million that we're talking about. Like
I'm not wide enough to know enough about golf. Sorry.
Yeah, so this is like the biggest pot there is, and that's because it's coming out of the Saudi, national fund. There's a name for that. But yeah, they put so much money into this. There is no one like the PGA, especially here in the West. It's just like the biggest, as far as I understand about this. It's like just the biggest, and the most prestigious. So it hurts. It hurts the players that they're being suspended there. Like it definitely hurts. But I mean, I don't know. Maybe if you're putting down your, maybe you're like, if I win this LIV tournament, well, I'm set. So I'm done with golfing afterwards. I mean, that might be a thing too. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone who can compete with the opportunities that PGA can provide, and then the money that LIV can provide. So that's kind of their
And it seems like the LIV is just like a tour right now. Like it's not even a full established company. It's just one thing, correct?
No, it's established.
Like established secondary company.
It's established in Europe.
Okay, so this is the thing, right? If they're going to claim sports washing, we need to have evidence that proves that sports washing has some level of harm, and that they're basically not just basically, because I don't even think PGA is necessarily not allowed to ban. Like, here's the thing, right? When you have competing companies for the same source of talent, I mean, even like, I know this is a terrible comparison, but even like Twitch to YouTube, there's a certain level of like, well, you're not really supposed to mix too much. Now, like the companies can't ask streamers to never be on YouTube. But I believe, isn't it like the NHL that doesn't allow certain hockey members to play on like the Olympian teams, even because of like conflict of talent as well? And so like, if it's about conflict of talent, I wish that it would just be talked about as conflict of talent, or is it actually about sports washing? Like, is it just a post hoc justification of like, we don't want competition, or is it actually some like moral, ethical thing? And it's not obvious to me that it's the latter.
I think.
Okay, so I think you asked for like data about this, right? But if it's like a moral or ethical level, then like, why do we need data that this is happening? If you don't
Because
want
it's
your
a
athletes
consequentialist argument.
No,
It would be
look, if you don't-
consequentialism, yeah.
Well, if you don't
Yeah.
want your athletes competing in a place that is doing bad things, right? We want to boycott that. We're essentially like trying to boycott their activities so that they hopefully move more to the left, or at least change certain policies that we disagree with. I feel like asking organizations or boycotting certain events is absolutely fine.
I didn't say it wasn't fine. I'm saying I don't know if it's effective, right? And so like, if you're making this just on kind of a stance of like some deontological value that you have, like, I suppose, like, here's the thing, companies can do whatever the fuck they want. I don't care. You know, it's just like weird to me of being like, well, if your value doesn't actually bear out to any of like the effects that you're concerned about, it seems like a weird value to hold. You can hold it. It just seems strange.
I guess. Okay, so let me
I mean,
ask
it's
you
not
this, right?
that
Let's-
strange that people have deontological
Well,
beliefs, right?
Okay, let's say we had like the top. It was like the top 17.
come on.
It was like 17 athletes or whatever, right? Let's say all of those top athletes go to this event. It's going to get way more recognition. A lot more attention is going to go there. There's probably going to be further sponsors in the future. I think that seems like really obvious that like once you have all the high-profile people going over to an event, it's going to probably get more attention.
Right. And so here's the thing, giving it more attention doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to bury
Sports
under.
wash.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're going to sports wash. Like the harm that so this is the thing. You can have, sorry, I shouldn't have said you can have it like deontological values are strange. I should have said, it seems like you're claiming a consequentialist moral ethic without any evidence of the consequence, which seems, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me, right? If there is evidence, which again, I'm not even saying there is or isn't, like, I'm like, just show me if there is, fair enough, I'm on board. But just as much as it's very reasonable to assume that by like allowing them to have these sports things and blah, 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 that you're sports washing, it's just as reasonable to presume that you're like highlighting this country and that people might look more into it and be appalled. It's also possible that you might just bring that country into like the greater global community, and the country itself might just slowly shift left as it integrates more with other countries. Like, who knows what's possible?
That's not
But
gonna happen.
maybe, but why not? Why
doesn't
not?
happen because there's been a history of that. Like this little promise that if we bring these countries like China, okay, like China's like a perfect example of this. That it's a promise that this country will become less authoritarian, where it's been cracking down more and more on its people. But if we just do more business with it, if we just give more of our American dollars to them, if we insinuate them more into the global community, then just maybe they'll do that. Or is it that just a few people will be incredibly rich by doing that business with them?
Giving a country capitalism will absolutely make it more moral. It will make it better. But it only goes so far if the philosophy and the governmental systems there are not going to change just because markets have been given.
Not only that,
right?
we're going to give
China on the market.
Yeah.
Not only that, but we're talking about giving China the 2022 Olympics. I mean, China's been given the 2022 Olympics as the host country. And I mean, so I mean that's another case where you could potentially argue sports washing.
Well, I mean, 2022, like if it's the 2022 Olympics?
They're the host nation of the 2022 Beijing Olympics.
That happened.
Beijing is.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, they were the host nation. So like they were given the 2022. Yeah,
they had they've been
the way,
hosted
the way
times.
they have the Olympics. Yeah.
Okay, sure,
so
sure.
I mean, it's another case where you could argue, where you could easily argue, that it is sports washing.
How do you think like Erudite, like looking at our past when it comes to inviting countries into the international community? I mean, Saudi Arabia is already there, right? Like Saudi Arabia is not a pariah, right? Biden said he was going to make him a pariah, but then he immediately turned tail on that.
Biden says a lot of things.
He says a lot of fucking things. But Saudi Arabia has all the power, right? They got the resources that everyone wants. Like I don't see how they're not already like a part of the international community. This is not them making their make themselves known to the world stage, right? Like
right. And just to be clear,
pause?
I just want to be clear before people start assuming that this is my position. I suggested 3 potential outcomes, right? One of them was the third one. And so if everyone's being like, there's no fucking way that'll happen, I'm like, cool, that's fine with me. I'm just saying we actually don't know the effects of these things.
Right. So I want to posit something, right, from my moral system, right, which is that we should have freedom of association, and that PGA is doing everything right here, and that what we should be doing is we should be advocating more awareness for the abuses of Saudi Arabia, because it is the people it is the individuals that choose to watch programming, that pay for pay-per-view events, that buy merchandise, that buy tickets, right? It is those individuals that determine the value that LIV presents in their golf tournament. And that is also those people that determine the value of PGA, right? You can't sell something if people aren't going to buy it. Right, you can't force people to buy. Well, I don't know. Maybe Saudi Arabia can. There is such a thing as taxes, and tax money went into this. But for the most part, right, we are dealing mostly with 2 organizations that are funded by people that choose to value these things. And so PGA has taken a position where they believe that they can maintain a monopoly or a monopsony, right? Because there's other golf tournaments, so just nowhere near as big as PGA, right? So they can maintain their monopsony by banning everyone that participates in this event and using the justification that says this event is put on by the Saudi Arabian government, and the Saudis are going to make money off of this, and the Saudis do horrible, horrible shit. So fuck them. And it is up to us as the consumer to determine the value of whether or not we think a really cool event with a lot of our favorite sports people is worth watching, or whether or not we believe that it's not worth watching because Saudis are going to profit off of it, and we're going to stick with PGA. Like that is where that is the real crux of the situation from my position. And so the answer here is to inform more people about the Yemeni genocide, also to inform people about how America helps with many of the sanctions and blockades that are enforcing the Yemeni genocide. To tell people about the fact that people that are likely gay are coming out as trans so that they don't get stoned to death. Right? To tell people about the difficulties that women face in Saudi Arabia, to tell people these things, like tell people the dangers of Salafism and how deeply connected it is to Wahhabism, and how it funds a lot of terror, and how it works and coincides with a lot of terror that's happening in other areas because of their enemies. That's the answer.
Yeah, well, the PGA could also take a lot of attention away from the LIV. If they get big names to do like almost like an esports, it's nationally televised, or internationally televised, that it could take a lot of attention away from banning their players from LIV is one thing, but they could completely demolish it by doing like an esports event where the top golfers are doing esports and it's televised and there's marketing around that. And of course, they could go further.
I think I'd be a little bit more okay with this idea of we should talk about the bad things that they're doing. I think everybody would agree with that. But one of the really shitty parts is that like whenever these athletes are invited to these events, they have to be very like hush hush and in whispers, keep everything on the down low. Recently we even saw this on Twitch when the Botez sisters were invited to Dubai, which is well known for its luxury and very rarely spoken about all the atrocities committed there. And they had
Real
to,
quick,
like,
I
they
just
were
want to
like,
add
essentially defending the slavery taking place there because they knew that like if they speak out about they're gonna get fucked. They're gonna get kicked out of the tournament because they're sponsored by them.
just to prove the hypocrisy from PGA a little bit. United Arab Emirates and other organizations that are owned by Dubai that have many of the same issues have advertisements on the PGA Tour, right? Like, so this idea that they're like, oh, the horror of Saudi Arabia is exactly how Not So Erudite proved. It's a bit of cope because they want to take out the competition, and they're using this as a post hoc rationalization most likely.
But I think
that really they don't give a fuck.
So then the
but I
question
think-
has to be, consumers, do we want to have moral feelings about it,
Right.
right? I think like
Exactly.
businesses are always going to just go with dollars, and it's in PGA's like interest to see LIV not do as well. Like that's somewhat self-evident, right? But I think as like viewers and consumers and athletes, there has to be this question of like, all right, what about the ethics of and morals of the individual? Because I think that's probably a little bit hopefully more of like a complex conversation.
So that's where I wanted to take this. But I was going to say to you, Scott, that I agree with you that I actually don't care what the reason they're doing it for, right? Who cares if this company is doing it for the right reasons? They're doing the thing that I want them to do, which is like fuck over these players who are supporting Saudi Arabia.
Also,
right?
Tiger Woods turned down like massive amounts of money from them. For the record, LIV wanted Tiger Woods, and like we don't know exactly how much it is. I've heard it was close to $1 billion for Tiger Woods, but he's told them multiple times to go fuck themselves.
All right, well,
But, like-
Tiger Woods. Hold on, but before you go,
When
there,
he's not fucking around on his wife.
when he's
Shout
not
out to
fucking
Tiger Woods.
no, that's fair. But like to Double Shine and Doobie, right? So getting to this I guess more ethical question, right? So Double Shine, before you said, well, it's fine, as long as their caddies aren't slaves, right? Like that's the bar you're setting. I think that's really interesting. Like, so, and I'll pose this question to you and Doobie. So like, what is your limit, right? So like, is there anyone who could sponsor this tournament that you would say, okay, that's a bar too far? Like, what are you doing being involved with this, right? I can escalate this as far as I need to. But before I do that, before I go down that path of like giving you ridiculous after ridiculous example of like terrible people, like, can you maybe come up with someone that?
No, it's perfect. I got a perfect example. Let's just assume that they're sponsored both by Black Lives Matter and the Proud Boys simultaneously. That way, no matter who you are, you're offended.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. Yeah, Double Shine, Doobie.
Yeah.
Like, go ahead.
So I would agree that the idea of like directly having slaves servicing you as like the people collecting your tennis balls at a tournament, we could probably all agree that's like probably not a good thing. And I would even say that line is a little bit more broad, right? I'm kind of using an extreme example. With Live Golf, they are directly financed by the Sovereign Wealth Fund of Saudi Arabia. Like there's a very clear connection. It's not just like one sponsor that gets a little logo on like the shoulder of your football jersey. It's a very clear connection. So that's why I use these extremes. I don't know if I could draw like a specific line of how much directly influenced with a country you are now responsible for any things that they are committing. Like if I visit China, am I responsible for
Nazi Germany? I'll do it. I'll go down the line with you. Nazi Germany. If Nazi Germany was sponsoring this and they're still around for some reason,
Who here owns Mercedes Benz? Yeah, who has a Volkswagen?
I think I would be
Volkish very much.
I would be pretty okay to say that like an American football team with like the Nazi logo, they're probably in the wrong there. We should probably be
Wait.
Did Hugo Boss makes this uniform? Yes.
So as long as they're German, Italian, or Japanese with the Nazi logo on their uniform, you're all good with it. Just not Americans.
Oh no, they could be other Nazis too, I guess. I mean,
but you specifically said Americans, and I'm wondering why you specifically brought it down to Americans.
Oh, because first off, I said American football because soccer is boring as hell anyways, and I don't really care. But yeah, I think the point is that like I'm American. I kind of care about like what American countries or American people are doing. I think it's a little harder for me to say like, oh, this like athlete from France they should be held accountable for what they do. I don't know if that's quite in my vicinity.
But PGA is international, USTA is international, NHL is international. So there's plenty of sports that are played in the United States prominently. That's USTA. Tennis is USTA.
Yeah.
These are all international sports. Swimming, wrestling. I can keep coming up on. These are all international sports in which Americans play against foreign competitors all the time.
Yeah. So first off, I think PGA is specifically. I think they are North American and American, like that's their main hub. I'm sure that they do compete internationally as well. What I'm saying is, like, as a person who lives in America, I think that like my say is a little bit more focused on like American companies, stuff like that. And again, I'm trying to criticize the companies more than I'm criticizing individuals.
No, why aren't we criticizing individuals? No, like that's what I want to do. I want to criticize the individuals. So there's an individual, right? And since you made me do it, I'm doing it now, right? There's an individual who has joined a sports tournament sponsored by Nazi Germany. Is that okay? Should we not be shunning them? That's okay. Thank you, Scott.
It's totally okay for him to do that. And also, it would be my position to not fucking support that person.
Okay, great. So double shy. Like, should they be shunned by polite society for joining a tournament sponsored by Nazi Germany?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that, like, if you're being sponsored by like Nazi Germany, you should probably be shunned by society.
Okay, all right. So we
real. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, all right. So, right, and why? Why is it that Nazi Germany would be a problem?
I might be a little bit rough on my history of Saudi Arabia, but I think that what Nazi Germany was doing was substantially worse than what Saudi Arabia is currently doing.
Why does that matter?
Yeah,
because I think the level does matter, right? I think I said that to begin with. That like
as long as you only commit a few human rights violations, you're okay. But once you commit a lot of human rights violations, then no.
What level of genocide are you comfortable with?
I don't know if I can like draw you a line, but I think like the Yemen genocide is a good step lower than World War II and the Holocaust.
So you're comfortable with that level of genocide then?
I think I'm like okay with them being, because again, I don't think they're being like, I think it's hard for me to say, but I think like Nazi Germany is a very different establishment.
Yeah, no,
than, like,
sure,
Saudi
okay,
Arabia.
but
so what
about so when they turned, so like when they were bombing Yemen, right? They bombed that place into dust, right? And they've caused a massive famine in human. It's like one of the greatest famines on earth right now. It's happening in Yemen. Though other countries are going to catch up because of what's happening in Ukraine. But still, it's one.
Don't forget the cholera outbreak.
Oh yeah, of course, right. And then also
about
like,
200,000 children pissing and shitting themselves to death.
And speaking of children, there was like a bus full of kids. They were heading out on a school trip, I think it was, right? And then an American-made bomb dropped by Saudi Arabia turned them into a crater, right? Like there's just a few examples for you, but you're comfortable with that, that level of genocide. That's okay.
So I'm willing to like bite the bullet. I guess I could throw it back to you. Do you think that, like, for example, someone from the U.S. might be able to take a sponsorship from like Chick-fil-A, for example?
Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A is doing genocide? When?
No, but they're like, but again, I'm saying that they are causing harm for people. I think Chick-fil-A like donates
causing harm where?
Right?
Where are they causing harm?
For the record, I hate this shit. I hate when people say this shit. They got a new woke CEO like 4 fucking years ago.
Show the direct link. Show the direct link between Chick-fil-A and harm done.
Okay, I don't think I can show you a direct link. I don't have. I just brought up an example of like a pretty minor thing that, like, again, or we could talk about like Nestle. I think Nestle is another company, right? That don't they? I
feel like you got to do a little bit better, buddy. I mean, like, we're talking about like a country that is actively performing a genocidal campaign, right? Like that's actively doing war crimes against a group of individuals in Yemen. Right, like in a country
with American support.
With American support, that's another thing. Yeah, fair enough. And which is why I call out fucking Obama. Which is why I had no problem calling out Obama for what he did, because Obama allowed them to do exactly this. So fuck you, Obama, for that. Thank you so much. Yeah. So like, and then I give you like one of the greatest human catastrophes that are happening currently, and then you counter with Chick-fil-A.
I think he's trying to
No,
point. I don't think it was the greatest example. I think he's just trying to suggest like there's a spectrum of harm and like immoral badness essentially, and he's saying like where do you draw the line basically?
I hear
Like
you.
I would agree that I would draw it well past genocide personally.
This is
but
the problem
I
with
think that's the
consequentialism.
question. I could be wrong, Double Shine.
No,
This
I'm
is the
trying-
problem with
No,
consequentialism.
I
hear
I
you,
brought
Serge. I
Chick-fil-A
hate,
because I
like,
feel
this is bad. This is not. No, I know.
I agree.
exactly
I'm
what
just
you're
trying to help
do.
Double Shine
Yeah,
out.
but
That's all.
like I'm saying that like you come up with a better example closer to genocide and like farther
Okay,
than
what
like
about
a company that-
sorry, what about like
At least
American
use-
what about American athletes going to like 2022 Beijing? Do you think they should all be
Yeah, the
boycotted?
Uyghurs. At least use the Uyghurs from China.
Wait, the Uyghurs, yeah.
Uyghurs.
Stop
by the way, I
saying-
think everyone else
stop
wants to
saying
defend us
with
also.
pronunciation.
Stop saying
It's
that.
all good.
Responsible,
Please,
so- I'm curious how everyone else wants to defend this position too, because I'm pretty
Okay.
sure you guys have all said that. We
I'm
should
off
hold
with
individuals
pronunciation.
responsible.
I
okay.
can
It's
tackle
okay.
this directly. I'll let Duby
I'm
go
just
first, but
imagining
I
like
can-
I'm just imagining like people in West China, like with like fucking Michael
I did
Jordan
not say the
t-shirt,
N-word.
like,
More
not say
importantly,
the
I'm
N-word.
imagining Twitch moderators
like
listening
white
to the pronunciation
dudes,
and
white
not being a big
dudes
fan.
with like 5950s on, just like China suppressing me, dog.
Uyghurs, please.
Uyghurs. There you go. Uyghurs. At least bring up the Uyghurs in China.
I'll answer your question directly. Doobie's been trying to break in for a little bit, but we can go back to that. Doobie, please.
So the Nazi question, so, the Nazis are always involved somehow. I think it depended like when, right? Because like people didn't really know about the Holocaust after the war was over, like really. So it would depend when, right? And you got to put this in context. Prior to that, yeah, they were invading other countries. They're very racist. Most of the fucking world was very racist back then. Like the U.S. was in the midst of like Jim Crow, right? Like I think around that time, didn't Canada still have those like those indigenous boarding schools going on? Like most of the world, yeah, most of the world is pretty fucking racist, right? So it would really depend when. That wouldn't be enough, I think, for us to say, oh well, you're immoral for working with this country, when every fucking country's the same way. So I don't know. I think that like, I think it's generally, I think it's kind of silly to put these kind of things onto the average person. So Saudi Arabia is doing a bad thing somewhere. So therefore, if you're a person, just the average person on the street, if you happen to do business with Saudi Arabia and contribute to their war chest in any way, even if it's like $1 or $10 or $100 or just like you being there on TV, you're somehow culpable for all the things they've done. Right. And we're even taking those things like completely out of context. Like, you guys have been calling the thing in genocide. I'm sorry, the thing in Yemen a genocide. But I think you're really overstating what's happening there, because the people that Saudi Arabia's been bombing up until like last year were like a terrorist organization designated as a terrorist organization by the United States.
Right,
so like
lots of things as terrorist organizations.
And terrorist organization that forcefully
fighting as well. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's a terrorist organization. The Houthis that forcefully like took control of parts of Yemen, right, and tried to oust the government there. Right, and these are the people that Saudi Arabia's been bombing. You can say, oh well, hey, I agree with those people, or hey, there's a lot of collateral damage. Sure, okay, but like this is kind of separate from their intention, right, which is to reinstate the legitimate government.
Let's not pretend that the U.S. gives a shit about legitimate governments when it's making these calculations, right? Let's all remember our good friend Juan Guaido, right? Let's remember Congress getting up and clapping for him. Okay, right. So like, I don't think the U.S. gives a shit about that, right? Like that doesn't.
I don't think anybody gives a shit about it.
Yeah, okay.
I don't. Yeah, I think
Great.
that these people have like these people have exactly. You don't care. The PGA doesn't care. No, we all have
but
Saudi Arabia has their national interests, and for some reason, bombing these people.
The people of Yemen, right? Like that.
Sure.
American
well, then you
bombs.
should be in favor of them winning that war really quickly.
No,
it doesn't look like the Houthis are going to win anytime soon. Why would you support the Houthis? If you care specifically about the collateral damage and nothing else on the ground, right? Why wouldn't you want the Houthis to lay down their arms and give up, and for Saudi Arabia to win that war?
Why I want Saudi Arabia just to like stop, Or the
Especially given that on the other side is ISIS. One of the groups on the other side is ISIS. It's not like
Hold
they're
on.
fighting, the good guys.
No, there are like multiple forces at play in Saudi
Yeah.
Arabia, right? Like you also can't take the situation as it is now versus the situation as it was nearly 20 years ago that led to the situation that occurs now, right? There was legitimate demand by forces in Yemen that were asking for several nation states to be drawn up by differences of culture so that Yemen could be broken up. I think it was 3 nations, but it might have been 4. I'm going mostly off memory here, right? They were asking and begging and pleading like, hey, we have different areas with totally different value systems and different cultures. We want independent states here. The UN wouldn't allow that to occur. Then there's a lot of talk about legitimacy of government, like Saudi Arabia may or may not have been deeply involved with getting corrupt politicians back in to quote unquote oppress people. And then we decided we were going to blockade and starve people and go to war because of illegitimate governments that were supposedly a threat to Saudi Arabia. And so we're both backing this, and the entire country has turned into a failed state that is a shit show. ISIS comes in later and takes advantage of this situation to just fight proxy wars, and now it's just bombs and fuckery everywhere. You know what I mean?
And again, prior to ISIS even getting there, right? The group, the Houthis, or was it Ansarullah?
Houthis have had like 10 different names over time, too. So
that group, right, had been accused by many legitimate organizations of torturing people, kidnapping people, murdering just normal civilians in the areas that they've taken over by force. Right, so these aren't like, it's not like Saudi Arabia is bombing these people just because they want to murder everybody in Yemen. It's really complicated.
Who would they bomb?
Yeah, but it's also not like they sent in peacekeeping fucking troops and secured areas along with the help of the UN to like try and they just decided they were going to bomb the fuck out of them and kill people and starve them and block them off.
Absolutely,
and not give a fuck about what happens.
Absolutely, Scott. That's exactly right. Like no one here needs to necessarily defend the fucking Houthis, right? Like I said, like the reason I'm saying I don't care is because we've proven as a nation that we don't care. Like our government doesn't care about any of these things.
I care about legitimate
right?
governance and I care about genocide.
So let's not pretend this is somehow a factor, right? This organization with a bad human rights record has taken over this land. Like we don't care about that, just like we don't care about the Saudi Arabia doing the things that they do, right? So like that's like a non-factor. My concern is what's happening to the people. It's the starvation, right? One of the worst I believe the Secretary General of the UN said it was the worst humanitarian crisis on Earth at the time. So like that's the part I care about, and in Yemen and the U.S. with U.S. backing, thank you Obama, caused that. So that's my concern. Like not like defending the fucking Houthis. I don't give a shit. Yeah.
Well, I would just say that they caused that, and it wasn't caused by these Houthis that came in and attempted to take territory from the government.
They started bombing.
Like, why is your bias toward blaming the United States and Saudi Arabia versus the people who instigated the war?
I'm sorry. You're right. I should really re-examine like how I judge these things. Right. See, when the bombs started
stand for people that want independence
on
from illegitimate governance
of Yemen, right? I should have said, you know what? Could this be your fault? Like when there was like dead mothers like crying over their children, right? I could have
those civilians.
I'm
not talking about civilians. I'm talking about the Houthi like fucking terrorists.
Okay, great. It's Houthis' fault too. Great. If that's what you want.
Okay,
fine. It's
but that's who Saudi Arabia's fighting.
Who are prosecuting that war are the Saudi Arabia. They didn't have to prosecute it the way they did, right? Like they didn't have to go on bombing campaigns that would hurt those civilians. They didn't have to do that, but they did.
Yeah, I guess they could have done like a ground war. Yeah.
But no, this is the problem with engaging in whether or not something is right or wrong from a consequentialist perspective, is that you then begin to try and understand to what level is the harm caused, who's at like trying to institute some level of like the blame doesn't actually play any role in consequentialism. It's just the harm overall that is done by the actors, right? But the real issue is is consequentialism here, right? The answer here is, do people have a right to freedom of association? Do people, such as Americans or anyone else, have a right to purchase tickets and purchase merchandise and purchase things from any company that they so choose? And then we can go a little bit more into the weeds about the illegitimacy of the Saudi Arabian state paying for these things and why we should maybe protest it for those reasons. But when you start going into like the harm of sports washing, or like, well, how bad is Saudi Arabia compared to America? And you start getting into the weeds about which is more evil, when all of the actors at this point are evil. And I just want to protect people's rights.
Yeah, I think that my bias is going to be toward the United States, right? So if Saudi Arabia is not working against the interests of the United States, and it seems like the U.S. seems to think that it's not, then I don't really care what they're doing in Yemen. I don't really care, how they run their country, what rights the women have there. I think it's a very traditional society. The culture is massively different from ours. If we want to change the culture, if we want it to become more Western or more modern, quote unquote, which actually means more Western European, then you're going to have to annex a country or something, or maybe just expose them to our media, and over time maybe they'll realize that our culture is better. They should let go of their culture. But I don't think that these kind of really flaccid virtue signaling things that like the PJ is doing is going to do anything to affect it at all.
Point, because I was going to ask you about this. So do you take the Michael Jordan stance, right? That like Republicans buy sneakers too?
What's the Michael Jordan stance?
Oh yeah, so Michael Jordan was challenged on why he doesn't actually speak out, back when he was there. Why he didn't speak out against causes, right? Like, because people could have, he's the biggest star, biggest athlete, right? And people would want to hear his opinion on these things, right? And his response to them was that Republicans buy sneakers too. Like, he didn't want to rock the boat and threaten his sneaker deals. That was
I think that's totally fair. He's an athlete. He's not a politician. He probably doesn't spend all day researching political nerd shit like we do. So if he doesn't want to give his opinion about something, that's totally fine. If his arena is sports and that's what he's devoted his life to, I think trying to pressure him to give some kind of opinion on policies or some other nonsense is it's kind of dumb. I think it's totally within his rights, and I think it's totally reasonable for him to say, "Hey, not my business. Fuck that."
There's also like a huge ask on an individual athlete as opposed to some kind of organizing body to take care of this.
You're low. Can you turn up your volume?
Yeah, sure. Sorry,
I'm not sure that was just me.
I mean, to be fair to all parties, I mean, this started underneath Obama. It kept going underneath Trump, and Biden just announced Biden announced in 2021 a $600 million weapon sale, air-to-air missiles in Saudi Arabia. So I mean, this just continues to be supported by the United States government.
Yeah, it seems like the United States has decided, for whatever reason, that Saudi Arabia is beneficial. It's good for our interests to work with them, to support
my
them.
chat's getting mad at me because I won't bring up the proxy war situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
because
Iran
I don't know.
that,
I don't really know. I don't really
yeah.
know enough about it to be able to prove in one shape or where. I've read reports. I haven't done a ton of research on it, so I'm not going to make claims. But they're yelling at me for not saying it, which is that Iran does funnel in a lot of money, as does Saudi Arabia, and they are fighting. So, and the Houthis are supported by Iran, via funds and things like that. My chat is like, no, don't you know this detail? And I'm like, no, I don't really know that detail, but I think it is. I would be remiss to not at least mention, right, that there are forces at play in Yemen beyond just the forces in Yemen as well, and that is why, for the most part, America backs Saudi Arabia, is because it's picking the lesser of two evils in its opinion. I mean, look, yeah, dude, I'm an anarchist. Fuck America, but I just mean to say that it's choosing to side with Saudi Arabia because it behooves them to side with Saudi Arabia versus not versus siding with Iran or not siding with either of them and letting Iran have an edge there.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So I wanted to bring in our friend Erudite. So do you think there's any sort of limit, that there should be any sort of expectation on the individuals that like, and we don't have to necessarily be sports watching, right? It could be anything, right? Individuals, should they have, like, does it matter who you work for, right? Like, should we all, should the focus be on getting the biggest paycheck, the biggest reward for ourselves, and walking away from that? Should, at some point, should the rest of society shun you for, you know, deciding on your own, right? Assuming you're not pressured into it somehow, right? Deciding on your own to work with an organization that is vile for whatever reason, like the Catholic Church or something. I don't know. Go ahead.
I mean, a lot of this is just relative. Like, can you work for those things? Like, obviously you can. Can society also shame you for choices that you make? Yes. Could society go so far as to like make it illegal to do certain like working for certain international bodies within its citizens? Technically, we could go that far and do that too. And so, like, when it comes to like societal prescriptions for like how we should manage these things, I try to not apply like a moral lens first, because then I feel like we get really lost in the sauce really quickly. I try to like apply more of like an analytical lens first, of being like, what are the impacts of these different things? What are the different things that we need to weigh, right? So like as an individual, right, I think it's completely valuable potentially as a society to like encourage a social norm that you like try your best to not be unethical in who you work for. I think that would be a nice thing. But when we get into like the modern landscape of American jobs, finding a workplace that you feel is like fully ethical is going to be like really difficult, because again, that now we're getting to the spectrum. Now I get like, we might be okay with like Walmart, who's got like sweatshops and like isn't super sensitive to the environment and all this stuff, but we're not okay with like Saudi Arabian funded companies. And I think like society can draw that line. And I don't even think that that's a crazy unreasonable line. We just have to be like, we just have to draw it somewhere. So like if the line is Saudi Arabian companies and then society wants to shame you as a result, I don't know. I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing. It sucks for the athlete. But I think like there are consequences when you're such a big figure to like who you decide to side with, as far as like what you communicate to your fans, at least. And so you basically like, this is the tricky thing, is like, what do you want to communicate to your fans? Like, would I take money from a Saudi Arabian company? No, I'd hope not. I think it would be better if I didn't. Is that a prescription that I feel like I want to force on other people at a government level? Definitely not. Maybe at a societal level of like shaming people. Sure.
So you're like, so you're
that
like,
means yes, by the way. She would if the money was enough, you know.
If so, say you were single,
not.
say you were dating somebody, and they asked you to propose they proposed to you with a ring that was the diamonds were blood diamonds, and they were known to be blood diamonds when it was bought.
Right. So this is, have you guys ever seen The Good Place?
No.
The Good Place is this really interesting analysis on like what it means to be good and bad in an extremely complex world isn't fucking clear, right? Because it's like, maybe for example, I don't take the blood ring and I'm like, I'm going to be ethical. I cannot support this. We're going to return it and we're going to get free trade, blah, 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 blah rings, right? And so then I buy that ring, but it turns out that the owner of that ring company is actually a massive rampant sex pest. And he's got a lot of sex trafficked kids and all these sorts of things. And so I didn't know this, but I'm actually like adding to somebody's capital who's kind of a terrible person, and maybe he uses his ring money to fund his like sex trafficking and all of this sorts of stuff. Like the world is really complex, and so like the idea of like, well, you shouldn't do anything if you shouldn't take money from anyone if it has any unethical thing. You shouldn't buy a tomato if it has any unethical like attachment to it, is incredibly difficult to actually achieve. And then the commentary in The Good Place is this idea of basically like no one gets to go to heaven anymore because you can't do anything good in a complex world unless you're a hermit in the woods who does like nothing but lives alone. And
I want to point out that nearly every cell phone, unless you're purchasing from Fairphone in Europe, as well as basically every computer that you're using, is using coltan. And this coltan is primarily, almost exclusively sourced from black slaves that are raped regularly. The women are raped. The only ones that usually survive are those that pair up with a specific rapist as their soldier and then get some level of protection in that regard. And the men are then worked to death so that they can go in the mines over and over again. And then those that are too weak to go in the mines anymore have plastic bags that they then carry over their heads. I think like the average life expectancy is like something like 32. And also again, and tons of the components in most of these things as well. Mercury, for example, they crush mercury and they mix it with certain components. And most of the people die after 2 years from the slavery from it, with advanced cases of silicosis that is like way worse than like the regular silicosis you get from construction work in America, which is also bad. But yeah, so I mean, like if you own a cell phone, it's not a Fairphone from Europe, and you own a computer, you have financially supported rape, murder, genocide, and slavery. You have used your money to do that.
Yeah,
and that's kind of a banality of evil to a certain extent.
I want to press Erudite because I think you're kind of being like a fence sitter here, and you're taking this like, oh, it would be super derogatory.
I was hoping that I was going to be a fence sitter from the beginning, because I think like
know,
weighing
and
in
that's why
really
I'm
strongly.
challenging
I probably won't. I already told you there just isn't evidence, and like typically before I weigh in really strongly, I'm going to get some level of evidence, and like I don't know. I think it's kind of bad thing to weigh in really strongly without it. I'm going to be honest. So you can't force me to do it.
I just want to ask you about the stuff that you just said, because it feels like you were almost making this claim like there's no ethical consumption under capitalism, and we can't possibly know what unethical actions our money ends up going with. I want to challenge you on that. Like if you know that a company that you're buying from is committing some level of like human rights violations or is it acting unethical, ought you not purchase from them? And
at best practice,
so,
probably not, right? You shouldn't. But
you should
we
buy
have
your phones from Fairphone. Fairphone.com. Check it out.
Like what level do you kind of draw that at?
So I basically look at morality as like best practice, tolerable, and then intolerable, right? So like best practice would say like probably don't accept the blood ring, right? I think that is best practice. For example, though, if you're really poor or whatever, and the ring really means a lot to you, and you guys like can't afford anything else, I'd say like it might be tolerable to like take the blood ring, because like there's so many other factors that make these decisions really complex. Like I don't just want to like throw the book at somebody really hard for like one small ethical decision, when these especially purchasing ethical decisions are really fucking complex. So like best practice, if I had the money, absolutely I'd want to live as a consumer at absolute best practice. I think that would be based, and I think it would be based for everyone else to do that. But the reality is like there's like consumer limitations. Most people financially can't really live at best practice most of the time, even when we're just talking about like food consumption. So this is why I'm saying like this is where it gets really complex. Best practice, yeah, you probably shouldn't. So for the athletes, I think it's super fair to say these athletes shouldn't be taking this because they're rich enough. They don't need that money. They could just get PGA tours anywhere else. I think that's fine for society to say.
Cool.
The difference is I'm not willing to say that because I don't actually know if there's certain consequences for certain things.
Why does it?
Do you think there's enough? Do you think there's enough evidence? Do you think there's enough evidence to support genocide in Yemen?
The difference is that as a consumer, I know that my money is directly going to supporting something. As being like a competitor on that thing, if I'm not there, somebody else will be, right? And so now the question is, okay, if I don't take their money, am I doing any moral good at all? Probably not. Probably not. Literally,
yes,
probably not. No, you're definitely
Yes, you are. If you are a top athlete like Tiger Woods, who's not going to live, by the way, if Tiger Woods went to live, it would be much more publicized. Many more people would watch it because Tiger Woods has a lot of fans who exclusively watch Tiger Woods. They're not in it for the golf, they're in it for their favorite athlete. And at that point in time, if it's a golf tournament with a bunch of no names that can't play golf or shit, then like no one's gonna watch live. And so therefore, if these no names receive a lot of money, so what? It was an epic failure and they lost a lot of money doing it.
I mean, I think the real answer here, and I know everyone's going to roll their eyes because it's going to be me and only me that has this
I
opinion.
roll my eyes
but
whenever you're around. So
the real answer here is that like we have to actually root out the cause of these problems. And the cause of these problems are illegitimate nation states that steal from people, that tax from people, that cause fucking wars, that are involved in theaters that they shouldn't be involved in, and that we don't have a free market. 40% of our fucking GDP is taxed from people. We don't have the means or the financial ability to do certain things. We have governments creating oligopolies and monopsonies by very nature of their involvement in these things. If like, for example, like with the coltan example I used, right? You know, this wasn't a problem 5-10 years ago. The coltan was largely produced by ethical companies, but failed nation states and government involvement has made the situation so much worse, and most of the resources are now coming from conflict zones. And again, we can see the same thing about Saudi Arabia. If there was not an illegitimate nation state here taxing its people and and manipulating markets because of their power and their resources to other nation states and all of these corporate state fucking enmeshed corrupt corporatism that we have in the world, a lot of these things would simply go away because people would value working for supporting or buying products from organizations that were ethical.
So hold on,
Killing me.
Erudite. Why does there have to be a consequence? Okay, so once again, these are our convenient test dummy, Nazi Germany. All right, Nazi Germany is sponsoring a thing, right? You are taking money, like you have the opportunity to take money from Nazi Germany. However, if you take this money, don't take this money, it makes zero difference. It makes no difference in whether they proliferate their hate or whether they continue on with their genocide machine or anything, right? Like it's all the same if you take the 2 million or you don't take the 2 million. Why does there need to be a consequence, and whether society should be condemning that one way or the other? To take a stance, take a strong stance against
Right.
that.
So the only reason why in this case I'm saying there needs to be a consequence is because the moral ethic that is being spouted as being bad, like the bad that's being claimed, is a consequentialist claim. That's the only reason why I think there needs to be consequences in this claim. I already said, if you just want to take a deontological stance and you're just really intense, where you're like, I will never purchase anything, I will never participate in anything that is in any way seedy, has done anything bad, that's fucking based, and good for you, right? The reality is that I know almost nobody lives in that world. And so I'm trying to make like relative prescriptions to like, what is reasonable things that people can reasonably do.
I understand that,
better.
but do it the best you can. It's not really been like a secret of what Saudi Arabia has been doing. It's not like they're doing this as a secret and no one knows about it, and it's breaking news from PrimeCayes panel. But this is a very well-known fact. I understand, like, if I went to a ring store and realized, like, I actually, perfect example. Me and my wife used to go on dates all the time. It was an ice cream shop called Mrs. Curls. It's in Indiana. It had really good ice cream. Shortly after we got married, Mrs. Curls, the owner of the ice cream shop, was figured out to have done some stuff with children. So, and I stopped going. In no way do I feel bad for going to Miss Curls when I did. I didn't have the knowledge. And so it's based on whether you have the knowledge that you're doing this with the person that is doing this versus like not having any knowledge that this is happening while purchasing or taking a paycheck.
I think, doesn't that position, again, kind of like mean that you would need to not do business with just about any government on the planet, like ever? So in the United States, when you pay taxes, hey, some of that tax money is going to Saudi Arabia. So you're still funding that thing you're calling a genocide.
I disagree with the majority I disagree with the majority of where my tax money
you still
goes.
pay them.
Continue. I'm forced to. I go to jail if I don't.
You could leave the country. You could go somewhere else, but you're still here with the American flag in the background, shilling for the United States, paying your taxes, encouraging other people to be proud conservative Americans, vote Republican, and look,
I can't be proud I can't be proud of where I live.
Dude, these are not.
If this is your like standard for morality and like whatnot. Like
this is a bullshit. This is a bullshit question because these are not questions made. These are not questions made freely. These are choices made via coercion. I'm coerced by the state to pay taxes.
Sure. Yeah, but if you don't agree with what your taxes are going to, if you don't agree with paying taxes, if you feel like you might be funding a genocide, and you are apparently by paying your taxes to the United States, then don't pay those taxes. Pay the $2,300 to renounce your citizenship and go somewhere else.
Right, but I'm forced to choose between two anti-life positions. Right, I'm forced to choose between either paying my taxes and supporting genocide, or not paying my taxes and risking and inevitably ensuring that I go to jail. Right? These are my choices.
No, I just gave you another option.
Okay, so I could
So you
go.
pay the
I could
$2,300,
save up money.
renounce your citizenship, and go to another country, find somewhere in the world that isn't participating in genocides, right? And then go there.
That's going to be a difficult choice. Can you think
Sure.
of a country right now that I could move to, and somehow get my children to move to? Because that would also be another anti-life position, which would be abandoning my children.
Yeah. So do you think we should be condemning you and Spartacus here and just about everybody on the panel for paying their taxes to the government that's contributing to a genocide?
No, it's theft.
I never said I was
You're
going
not
to
doing the hard work.
I
Not doing the hard work to not pay for genocide?
I condemn the actions of the people that are stealing. I don't condemn the people that through threats of violence give up their money. They're being robbed. How would I condemn the actions of someone paying taxes? Those people are being stolen from.
Well,
Do you condemn the mugging victim in the alley and say, "How dare you give that mugger money? That money probably went to drugs and to other bad
so
things."
if you went through an alley like every month or something, right? And you knew that when you go through this alley, you're gonna get mugged by a guy, then he's gonna use that money to go rape children or some shit. Or you can pay a little more.
You would do your best.
You can pay more. You can pay more to go down the side road.
Yeah,
you're forced. Where you pay the guy.
Let Duby lay out his position, please. Go ahead.
Where you pay another rapist one time, and then you go and find a place where you don't need to walk down alleys with rapists in them.
Here you go.
You're
forced to walk down this alley,
knowing that all these rapes are being committed. You're intentionally going down this alley where you know that the rape you're gonna get charged over and over again, and that money is gonna be used again and again for those rapes. Right. So it seems like the lesser of the two evils here would be to pay the larger fee one time, and then just find someone without the rapes.
Right.
You're forced to go down this alley.
What I said multiple
Yes, you
times,
are.
right? Is that you are forced to choose, but you don't get to have a choice because the choice is not voluntary. It is not a free choice. It is a choice made of coercion. So to make your analogy more accurate, right? There is someone that stands in front of my building where I live and says, you can go down alley A where you're likely to be mugged, and your mugging money will go to rape children. You can go down alley B and you won't be mugged, but you'll have to pay a small percentage of a tax to not be mugged, and your money will go to raping children. Or you can go down road C, but you can never come back to your building, which means abandoning your children. All three of these, right, are acts that I cannot choose because they're anti-life. They are against my life.
But you do choose one.
Yes, you do choose one, but you don't choose them by freely.
I know that you didn't put yourself in that position, right? So you didn't show up there like on purpose.
I don't.
But unfortunately, you're in that position.
No, you're going to let me finish. I don't condemn the person for choosing amongst things because they're done so not freely. They don't have freedom of choice. So it's not a real choice. What it is the illusion of choice, because they are forced to make a decision via coercion. It's not voluntary. I don't condemn.
Yeah, but that doesn't make any sense.
Non-voluntary decisions that they're forced into based off of all of the available options being.
Yeah, I understand. Okay, I understand what you're saying, but given that, unfortunately, we all appeared on a piece of land that was owned by somebody else or claimed by somebody else. The people that own the land have the ability to put us in cages or kill us if we don't pay them.
They don't own that land legitimately, but fair enough.
Sure. Okay. So given that this is a case, right? I understand that the coercion is going to happen. You didn't agree to the coercion. You're being forced to make a decision between all these bad options, right? So, but choosing the worst of those options that makes you like a cash cow for a rape industry. Seems like the worst. If you're having to choose between three shit options, it seems like you're picking the one without even like the peanuts in it.
All
right?
choices are made via coercion. Because all choices are made via coercion, you cannot condemn person for choosing the lesser or the greater evil in this regard. All choices are evil in this regard. Doesn't make any sense. There is no choice. All of them are anti-life.
Wait, hold on. So if that's like, would you say that if somebody were like in Nazi Germany, right, going to Prime's favorite topic, and someone was like going to be a prison guard, right, at one of the at like Auschwitz or some shit, and the prisoners were running away, and because he's a guard and because the other Nazis are there, he needs to run out and beat the shit out of the prisoner and drag them back to the oven, right? You wouldn't morally condemn that person? because there's some kind of like social coercion, and then I'm sure if he doesn't do it, he's gonna get killed. Right?
If you're
probably so condemn the guy, right?
I would not condemn the Nazi guard for doing that. No.
If you're coerced to commit a crime, you're not even legally condemned.
His choice is to blow his own brains out, right? To be killed or to kill someone else. He does not have a free choice.
When can somebody be condemned for a choice statement?
Well, even legally, if you're coerced to commit a crime, you cannot be held liable for that crime because you were coerced to do it.
Hold on. When can somebody like be condemned for a choice they made? Because you could say like even like a fucking murderer or like a rapist or a pedophile. Like if someone's a pedophile and they're molesting children,
you're ignoring
and they're molesting children.
Government.
And they're molesting children. They have like a paraphilia. They have like a mental illness, right? This mental illness is leading them to do bad things, right? So do
you condemn Nazism?
Of course I do.
Okay, well then you've already condemned the perpetrator of the act. You've condemned the ideology.
Even those people,
the government,
even the people that crafted the ideology, felt like
those things.
Even the people that crafted the ideology felt like they were under pressure, under some kind of coercion, violent coercion, even from other forces, right? And so they had to craft this ideology. Right, and as a response to that, yes, it is true. Yes, it is. Unless you believe that you think when Hitler was crafting Nazism and
paying back the French and inflation is a form of
no, I think that these people genuinely believed that they were under attack from like the Jewish elite and the rest of Europe. We're trying to take their nation apart and yada yada. Right? I think they genuinely believe this. I don't think that they came up with
what they genuinely believe. I care about
that's the issue.
Wrong.
They felt because they genuinely believe these things. They felt like they were under violent coercion, under like a force of death of their people if they didn't form this ideology and do these things.
Now you're trying to add the ideology into the moral equation and say that it's okay so long as they believe they're under coercion.
No, I would
the actual coercion itself.
No, yes, I'm not saying it's okay. I'm saying that sometimes, even though you're under coercion, if you under that coercion, you do a really bad fucking thing, you should still be condemned.
So if I put a gun to your head and I say, suck my dick or I'm going to anally rape you.
Hey, look.
Right? And you think both are wrong.
Yeah, there's a terrible assumption there. You're assuming I think that's like a really bad fucking thing. Okay, you should say.
Yeah, well, how about, let's make it better. No, Doobie, torture the child to death. I'm going to sodomize. I'm either going to sodomize your girlfriend or I'm going to sodomize you. Can I condemn you for your choice if you don't pick the greater choice, which is go ahead and sodomize me?
Fabian, better yet.
It's a bullshit trolley car problem. The answer is that you're a virtue ethicist in that regard because you're forced to choose between two evils.
Scott, Doobie. So if your wife was at gunpoint and he said you either shoot this person and kill this person or I kill your wife. I mean, which one are you gonna choose? You're under coercion, right?
Yeah, it would be under coercion.
Which one are you gonna choose?
It would depend, right? So if it's murder,
you're gonna do a consequentialist analysis.
Yeah, hold on. If it's murder, 10 children or kill your wife.
5 seconds. I'm killing all of them right now. 5.
All of them.
4, 3.
I'd kill my wife over the 10 children.
Okay. All right, boom. Yeah. There you go. You killed your wife. Now, are we going to judge you as a horrible, evil person because you chose to kill your wife in that situation, as opposed to kill a stranger or allow yourself to be killed?
Wait, hold on. You didn't say allowing myself to be killed was an option. First off,
I did.
No, you didn't. You said either my wife or like a child.
All right, it got mixed up because you were under coercion. You didn't really have time to think about.
Oh my god, you didn't say that. So if the option was my wife, children, or me, I'd pick me, obviously. Right? If I had picked the children, I think that it'd be reasonable for people to be upset with me and say, hey, you shouldn't have picked the fucking children. There's 10 children versus one person.
Right, but I don't morally condemn you in that situation.
I'd absolutely morally condemn that person.
You were under coercion and you made a split decision based off of the violence that was against you. It was not a free choice.
Yeah, but if you choose the worst of the 3 decisions,
to find the person that was putting a gun to your head that made you do this.
But if you choose the worst of the 3 options, right, under that coercion, I think it's totally fine to condemn that decision. And I think that if you choose to continue paying your taxes like a good little pay piggy, then you're picking the worst of the 3 options. If you think funding genocide is a bad thing,
I disagree. I think it's an absurd position. to hold people to the fact that we must engage within consequentialist arguments, because at the end of the day you're forced to pick between what is evil, and therefore we will condemn you based off of a consequentialist analysis. All of the actions are evil, or I would say not evil, because I would say all of the actions are descriptively illegal from my position, but we'll stick to a deontological perspective for this, even though that's not strictly what my position is, right? If all of the options are evil, it is perfectly valid and morally legitimate from a normative ethics framework to say that if all of the choices are evil, that there is no choice, and that you cannot condemn someone for making a morally evil choice
That doesn't make
because they don't have a free choice, or to judge them from a virtue ethics.
I mean,
or to
it's
judge them
fine.
from a consequential
Scott,
perspective.
hold on.
It's
So
because
Sprout,
Doobie's not gonna wait.
Let me ask you
Doobie's-
the question.
You're
Wait,
not Doobie.
I understand.
Let Doobie finish answer the question.
I want to ask you guys one of these hypotheticals.
He's not answering the question. He's asking. He just said, "I want to
Yeah,
ask
wanna
you." It's an answer to
one
a
of these-
question.
I'm trying to understand like how your brain thinks right now. I'm sorry, how your brain works right now.
That's not answering a question. That's not answering a question.
The
You got
question
the
I'd like to ask you.
based
The
on a
question I'd like to
fallacy.
ask you. The question I'd like
No,
to ask
you're not
you.
answering a question. You're asking a
Okay,
I'd
question.
like
Come
to
on,
ask
come on.
you. The
No, I
question
get
I'd
to ask a
like
question.
Oh
You
my
said you were
God.
answering a question. I get to ask my
I've
question.
answered your stupid
my God.
hypothetical. I'd
No,
like to ask you a question.
you said you were going to answer the question. You decided not to answer the question, so now it
What
goes back
question?
to me.
I'd already
You
answered your
appreciate it.
question.
I was getting ready to ask you one, but you said you're going to answer.
okay.
You said you were going to answer
Go
the
for it. Ask me
question.
the question, and then I'll ask you a question.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Go for it.
So there's the moral dilemma of a mom has two kids, kid one, kid two, and the other person has a gun, says you choose which one or they both die. You got 5 seconds.
So selfish
Wait,
choice.
say that again. I wasn't paying attention.
You choose which one or they both die, and you've got 5 seconds.
Choose which one of what,
The kids.
and they.
Which one of the kids he would shoot, or
Yeah,
they
I
both
wouldn't-
die.
That's like a even trade off either way. So I wouldn't follow the mother.
Right. So you then
Wait, hold on. I was what I could ask a question afterwards, right? Because I don't think what's happening here is comparable to that. Given that option one, I think, is continuing to pay your taxes continually in perpetuity for your entire life, paying for these genocides. Option two, running away or like getting put in a cage. Or option three, paying the one-time fee to get out of the country forever. So I don't think that's like comparable. Right. So I'm going to ask you, Sprout. So like if you're put into a bad situation where someone breaks into your house with a school bus full of kids, right? And they say, hey, you can either rape one kid, 10 kids, or 30 kids, right? Or all 30 kids, right? And you choose to rape all 30 kids instead of the one kid. Wouldn't it be reasonable to say, hey, you shouldn't have picked all 30 kids, you fucking crazy person?
Or why wouldn't you just choose not to rape? Because rape is an action that you would have to commit.
You're being coerced. It's either this or they all get murdered or they all die.
Or they all die. Then you probably wouldn't do all die. You'd probably do one.
So if somebody raped all 30, right? You'd probably say this person is a bad person for raping all 30 versus one.
It's a
right?
ludicrous. It's a ludicrous scenario.
You're trying to wiggle out of it now. But the answer is yes.
I was going to answer the
yes.
question. Could I answer the? You know what? Go ahead. I was going to answer the question, but don't do it. It's all right. Cool.
No, go for it.
Yes, I mean, if someone decides to commit more harm, then yes.
Okay, so this is what we're talking about. So you are making the decision to continually, in perpetuity, for your entire life, to be a pay pick for the United States and their genocidal efforts across the world.
Oh,
Right?
No,
So you're choosing the worst.
The money is coerced out of me.
You're choosing the equivalent of raping all 30 kids. You're choosing the
No, I'm
worst
not.
possible option.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I'm not.
Okay,
It's fine.
all right. Oh man, we have gone so far away from the subject, and now there's a lot of rape going on, a lot of hypothetical rape going on. That seems to be the signal that we should just end this. All right, we're gonna continue on to our next topic. Okay, that was weird. This was a weird moment in time.
It goes perfectly into the next topic. So hit it.
Oh,
There you
boy.
go. That's true.
Oh,
Can I just
man.
posture like a Giga Chad?
Please.
I think weighing in really strongly when it comes to LIV athletes, particularly if you don't care about golf, you don't watch sports, and you don't know anything about either of these two companies or much about the complex histories of the Saudi Arabia, our relations with them, or our relationships with other sporting companies. To be honest, everything you say should be heavily caveated, and you shouldn't speak with too much authority because holy shit, is this complex? And just like having a black and white narrative, like good or bad, is I'm sorry, it's insane.
I don't think it's. I don't think it's that. I don't think it's as complex as you stated it is.
I think
No,
almost
I agree.
everything
I
international
agree with not
policy-wise,
so erudite.
I got accused of being
so.
a fence sitter, and to be honest, like I think probably more of us should be like, I'm glad I'm a fence sitter. I know that I don't know enough to be weighing in really
I
strong.
agree with not so erudite under one. I know. I agree with. I agree with not so. I agree with not so erudite with one position, with one caveat, which is if you're a consequentialist, that's the argument you should have. But also, you should never claim to be able to make any moral claims as a consequentialist, because unless you can tell me that you can see that you're omnipotent. But that being said, if you have a deontological moral system, or you believe in natural law philosophy, then you can say what is descriptively illegal and not illegal from your framework, and you do not need to have all of the details in order to say that something being done is illegal and condemn it based off of that alone.
Or immoral. I think you meant to say not illegal.
No. I'm anarcho-capitalism and natural law philosophy is a descriptive legal system about who is and isn't a criminal. It's not necessarily fully ethics as like a normative ethics framework, depending upon who you're talking to.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's nearly as complicated. I think that I think the average. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think that the people here, I can't speak for the average individual. I think the people here know enough about Saudi Arabia and what they've been doing to actually make a decision on this. So yeah, but I guess it's just a difference of opinion.
Also,
I mean, I'm totally in favor of like I'm totally in favor of imposing our like cultural standards onto other countries, but I think we should do that through like annexation is probably the most effective way. This is, like I said earlier, flaccid virtue signaling. The achieves nothing.
Oh yeah, okay. Annexing Saudi Arabia.
Also, like I think like you talked about how like if you're not
You're
a huge
quiet
fan
again.
of golf, I don't think that anybody's like a huge fan of golf here. I don't think so. But there is like a broader conversation of like what degree of separation we should hold people responsible. And quite frankly, Erudite, I think you've been kind of unwilling to like stake a hard position on that broader topic either.
No, I took a pretty clear position. I just was very clear about weighing in on the athletes right here. I'm not really willing to do it.
The only boomer we have here in chat is Prime, and I don't think he watches golf. So it's I don't think anyone here really religiously watches golf.
Am I a boomer? Explain.
I don't know. You're old.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. Okay.
It was a jab. It was a jab.
It was a jab.
Relax.
I felt the jab. The jab.
All right.
Thank you so much. All right.
Gen Z humor fucking sucks, by the way.
All right. They're trying their best.